All right. So if you're tired of jumping between various interfaces, tools, and scripts when managing vSphere, this session is definitely for you. My name is Vladimir Velikov, and I'm a senior engineer in the vSphere Client SDK and plugins team at VMware. So today we'll talk about UI integrations, vSphere UI plugins, and basically how VMware, together with partners, are bringing consistent UI to vSphere customers and also in the hybrid cloud. So please keep in mind the presentation is no commitment for any feature delivery and cannot be considered binding for VMware in any way. So let's start from you, the VI admin, monitoring and managing your vSphere environment. So regardless of its size, you are probably using lots and lots of tools. So your favorite terminals, the vSphere client is the main monitoring and management app. Then you have storage providers with their UI, backup, DR analytics, and at one point you just want this to stop. So how do we fix this? Maybe a browser with multiple tabs? That's probably not gonna cut it, and it's probably not the answer. Or maybe this. Does this look familiar? Well, it does, at least to me and to many other folks, but I don't think this is what we mean by a single pane of glass. So our answer is tight UI integration through vSphere client plugins. Now you've seen plugins across the UI at global level, in the navigator and shortcuts, also integrated with the inventory as summary cards, monitor and configure views, and also custom menus with actions. And traditionally, apart from the pre-installed plugins shipped with the vCenter server, the usual vSphere environment would contain only a few other plugins from VMware or from other vendors. But we are on a mission to enrich the ecosystem, to grow it, and this means both better integration and richer choice of solutions. So, for example, if you use a DR solution, which is not updated frequently, you are not satisfied with it, you're not stuck without an alternative. So you no longer rely on some knowledge silos inside your organization built around this solution. We will be resolving that and these limitations by making solutions interchangeable. So you can switch from your current solution to another solution which better fits your needs. But in order to get there, VMware really needs to raise the game, and we are doing that to improve the current model in a number of aspects. So those are consumption, integration, and security. Consumption, this is solution discovery, the way you find out about solutions, integrated installation, and ultimately lifecycle. You will see a demo of the installation of the integrated installation shortly. When it comes to integration, it's about consistent UX, loading times, SLA, performance, and so on. And with regards to security, it's about plugins integrated exactly where needed with the vSphere UI. Now, let's start from the discovery part. Solution discovery is now available through the VMware Marketplace, which has grown significantly to provide more than 800 apps. These are just vSphere apps from more than 300 vendors. Now, quite some of these are layered apps, meaning that they don't only get deployed on the vSphere infrastructure, but also integrate with the vSphere APIs on multiple levels, like with the inventory, with vCenter services, or with obviously with UI as plugins. Stay tuned for the commerce capabilities, which are about to be launched this fall. Now, Marketplace has a number of ways to filter out solutions. It supports multiple platforms, most commonly vSphere and VMware Cloud, but also many others. And it supports a number of formats. Most commonly, these are virtual appliances and containers. It's available on marketplace.cloud.vmware.com. Let's go there. So there you can filter out by different criteria. In product compatibility, we can select vSphere. As you can see, there are more than 800 apps here. And for each app, you're able to see what platform it supports. So here is on-prem, you have VMC, and some of them also support multiple ones. Now, when it comes to deployment, some of these apps can be deployed directly through the marketplace. But when we are talking about layered apps, deeply integrating with vSphere, the installation process can be more difficult in the sense that there are different configurations that need to be done at different times. So traditionally, this has been fully the ownership of the solution vendor. And as you can imagine, as you have seen, this has resulted in a variety of ways to install a solution. Basically, every vendor was inventing their own way for installation, for post-deploy configuration. So some would partly use the vSphere UI, some would use standalone UIs, vendor-specific scripts, custom processes. We've seen even copying around config files. Now, VMware is changing this kind of installation experience. We are launching an installation framework, which is integrated with the vSphere client itself, which is a significant leap forward, as the user doesn't have to leave the UI to deploy the solution and to start configuring it. Now, this has been initially implemented for the NSXT solution and shipped just yesterday with the 7.0 update 3 release of vSphere. Now let's see a demo of this in action. So we go to the vSphere client. There's a dedicated NSX homepage where you can trigger the installation, provide the OVF or OVA, and basically go through the steps providing all parameters of a usual OVF deployment. There is nothing new here. You are already used to this, specifying the folder, compute resource, storage, networking. And ultimately, we reach the NSX details, where the solution has provided their own custom parameters. So in the NSX scenario, we need to provide some credentials for the normal users, the root user, admin, and so on. Right, then there are some optional parameters, we'll skip them. Host name, static IP, netmask, gateway, DNS, and NTP, basically all things you are already used to. So we're finishing the wizard and trigger the actual deployment. Now we can observe the progress of the deployment in the recent tasks below. Two of the tasks are related to the deployment of the OVF itself, and the other install solution one is tracking the whole installation process. So when the appliance is deployed, it would receive some parameters from the vSphere UI, and call back vSphere UI to get the plugin registered. This would happen after some waiting times, like 10 minutes, or in the case of NSX, just for boot up time. And now when the plugin is registered, vSphere client will automatically detect it, download it, deploy it. So the user can just click the Start NSX onboarding button, which would refresh the browser and automatically navigate to the newly installed plugin. So the browser refresh here reloads so that the plugin extensions are loaded. And now the user can continue setting up the solution through the vSphere UI without going to the NSX Manager UI or doing anything else. Now on the top right corner, you see the Install on another vCenter button. So this, sorry, let's switch back. Yeah, so this button allows you to deploy the solution on multiple vCenters. So we just deployed it on one of them. But as the vSphere client is a single pane of glass for the whole SSO domain, so in linked mode, we are able to, from the same vSphere client instance, to deploy the solution on additional vCenter servers. We don't have to go ahead and log into each vCenter individually. Now this flow is a significant improvement to previous installation procedure of NSX, which basically required you to jump between the vSphere UI and the NSX Manager UI, and also enter the same credentials for the same vCenter server multiple times. And we are seeing this across the board for all solutions. So it is important to note that this improved installation framework is currently available only for NSX, but there is nothing NSX specific here. There are no internal APIs used. There are no internal VMware mechanisms here. And it means that we are going to ship this framework for all third-party solutions out there to integrate with it, and together with VMware deliver this seamless installation and standardized installation experience. And we will proceed with lifecycle aspects. Okay, so let's go back to the presentation. Some words about the integration part. So let's have a look at some architecture specifics. To achieve the goals we mentioned earlier, VMware has fundamentally changed the plugin architecture from local to remote plugins. And the main specific characteristic of local plugins is that deploy a Java middle tier in the vCenter server, which is used to serve the UI. And it also proxies all communication to the backend. Remote plugins change this picture by serving the UI directly from the backend. And the UI is able to talk to the backend through the reverse proxy of the vCenter. Now, the difference is subtle, but extremely important. So it means that there are no executable bits inside the VCSA, and this automatically means guaranteed performance. So there's no external code using vCenter's resources, significantly improved security. So this means a lot thinner integration and API surface, and seamless upgrade. So with regards to the upgrade, it is especially important for the hybrid and the public cloud, where VMware needs to do frequent upgrades to the VMware Cloud. And you can imagine what happens if there are multiple solutions which have specific um, deployed code inside the VCSA, and these solutions are not compatible with the new version of the vCenter. So in order not to block these upgrades, remote plugins have become the only supported architecture for the VMware Cloud in all its flavors. For these reasons, we are announcing the deprecation of the legacy local plugins from the next major release, vSphere. This was the original architecture provided with the HTML client, and it basically, like back in the day, it allowed easier transition from the Flash-based client. So yeah, we had to move plugins very quickly out of the Flash and into the HTML client. So it served its purpose, but um, with significant limitations and complexity of the architecture, which were quickly recognized. So in 6.7 U1, we shipped remote plugins, which reached quickly feature parity in 7.0. And shortly after, we enabled remote plugin support on the VMware Cloud on AWS and all future VMware clouds. Now, going forward, we are going to officially deprecate local plugins with the next major release, and in the subsequent major release, these plugins will reach end of life. So meanwhile, we are aggressively working with partners to adopt this new architecture so we can all reap the benefits. VMware partners, and of course the end customer who would receive quicker updates and new features from all third-party solutions. Now, until we get there though, local plugins are still supported. And with regards to security, vCenter needs to implement certain hardening initiatives, which have a direct impact on local plugins, but not so much on remote plugins. As I mentioned, they have a thinner integration with the APIs. So let's go through them one by one. First one is SHA-1 deprecation. Basically, this hash algorithm is gradually deprecated in vSphere. This has already started in 7.0 update 2 and will be incrementally replaced with SHA-256 over the next releases, mostly the next major release. With the next major release, we will also require all local plugins to comply with the FIPS standard for highly secure encryption algorithms. The third point relates to session management filter API. Probably earlier this year, you saw a number of vulnerabilities that were reported for vCenter server. Those were related exactly to local plugins. And there were a number of patches released. So this has impacted local plugins and they need to adapt to that. And last but not least, the Java Spring library is at the core of the vSphere client. So in 7.0 update 3, which was released yesterday, we have released this Spring 5 update, which is basically transparent to plugins. There shouldn't be any compatibility issues. Just in case, we have kept the possibility to switch back to Spring 4 in case a local plugin is using some elaborate APIs from the old Spring. And let's wrap up with our vision going forward, which obviously involves only remote plugins. As they are not running inside the vCenter server, they have a number of security advantages, like privilege isolation, limiting the access area of the plugin, and avoiding possibilities for user impersonation. And auditing is a very important point here. The remote plugins provide much better auditing capabilities. And this transfers neatly to the hybrid story, where VMware Cloud on AWS supports only remote plugins. And it means that if you as a user in vSphere in on-prem use a solution from a particular vendor, you would be able to seamlessly use the same solution in the VMware Cloud. And you would be able to manage both the private and the public cloud in the hybrid scenario. Now, one of the main pain points of customers has always been the lifecycle management. You just saw a demo of where we are going with that. And this only becomes possible because of the few dependencies between the plugins and vSphere. With regards to performance, I'm sure many of you have hit issues, especially with the Flash client in the past, and maybe with the first versions of the HTML client. When we were digging through these problems, we have frequently discovered that they are caused by misbehaving local plugins, which are slow, and it was not obvious that the plugin is slow, but the perceived performance of the client was impacted, so you wouldn't be able to load the UI and do other stuff while the plugin view is loading. This is no longer the case. The plugin view is now loaded in the background, while you can keep on using all the other features if a plugin needs time to load. This is what we call coarse-grained extensibility. In terms of the developer persona, we are giving nice capabilities for partner developers, and this is mostly using their preferred tech stack to build the plugin and the solution. In the past, you would have to know Java, you would have to learn OSGI and all these technologies, and some partners were even like hiring for that. This is no longer the case. Partners can leverage the knowledge of their teams to build, to use the tech stack of their choice. And this means more efficient development process and quicker time to market for all the features. A new use case for plugins has been delivered this year. This is the vSAN data persistence platform, which allows creation of Kubernetes services with built-in remote plugins inside them. This means that when you deploy them, they automatically have a UI configuration plugin. This is a new breed of plugins. And last but not least, from compliance perspective, vSphere needs to comply all the time with the multiple of security and other standards, which require changes, and interop should not get in the way of both plugins, third-party solutions, and the VMware products. So as a summary, this is the way VMware is providing a common platform and neat, seamless UI experience across the private, the public, and the hybrid cloud. Thank you, and please take your survey. And if you have any questions, I'm all ears. See if we have anything in the chat. Now, if you have any questions, you can always reach out to me on Twitter, by mail, and you can also use the vSphere UI community team Twitter to provide any feedback for the UI as a whole or for plugins. So the question is, what is the end of life date for local plugins? There's no specific date. Yeah, so this is the subsequent major release after the next major release. So 6.5, 6.7, 7.0, these are what we call major releases. Next major release, we officially announce deprecation. Subsequent major release, we remove them. So there is significant time to adopt the changes by partners, but we recommend doing it as soon as possible because this would allow partners to not have to do all these security changes that are enforced on local plugins. Any other questions, comments? Cool, thank you so much. And stay tuned in this VMware Code track, where you'll be able to hear about the vSphere mobile client by another member of the vSphere UI team, and that's Tihomir Matev. Thank you.